Now, we're going to cover this story from multiple locations. We're going to be in Doha, Beirut, and we're going to be in Washington, D.C. We're going to start with Bernard Smith, who is live for us in Beirut there. Bernard, just talk to us about these latest attacks that you've been hearing about in Beirut.
Rob, in the last hour, there was a strike that hit near the Iranian embassy, which is in the southern suburbs of Beirut behind me. You can also see smoke rising from strikes earlier on today as well, earlier on this afternoon. And, of course, there's been continuous airstrikes in southern Lebanon and in the east in the Bekaa Valley. Overnight, the Israelis said there were 25 waves of airstrikes, and they're coming in at an intensity that hasn't really been seen in Lebanon in all of the decades of conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. The Lebanese government now says so far 217 people have been killed in these airstrikes since Monday, 798 wounded. Israel says it's killed 70 Hezbollah fighters, and the Lebanese government doesn't distinguish between fighters and combatants, but the Israelis say 70 Hezbollah fighters. But consider that the most conservative estimates of how many fighters Hezbollah has is something between 20 to 30,000. And consider that a Lebanese security official told the Reuters news agency this is all about ending Hezbollah once and for all. Then you have an idea of how long this might go on for.
And Bernard, so many people in Lebanon have had to leave their homes because of this. What kind of support are they getting?
Well, the UN is now saying at least 100,000 people have been sheltered, have been put up in shelters so far. That's Imran Riza of the UN. He says it's unprecedented in terms of the scale in Lebanon of the warnings and the displacement of people. And he noted that in 2024, nearly 1 million people were uprooted in the fighting then, and 75 to 80% of them did not go to these official shelters. And he estimates that the same thing is going to happen now. And there's very little the state is able to provide. The UN also says its appeal for Lebanon this year was $1.6 billion, and they've only got 20% of the funds that they've asked for. And the UN says they're much, much worse off in terms of actual funding and material preparedness than they were in 2024. And we've seen people sleeping on the streets, sleeping on the Corniche, sleeping in schools that have been converted into reception centres. But again, people want to know how long they're going to have to do this, the authority to be away from home, and the authorities have not been able to tell them, Rob.
OK, while Iran is continuing its attacks on Gulf nations hosting U.S. troops, in recent hours, several countries have been targeted. These strikes have been happening since the conflict began. Overnight, in Bahrain's capital, Manama, 1 hotel and 2 residential buildings came under attack. In Qatar, an alert was issued warning residents to stay indoors because of what was called an elevated security threat. And in Kuwait, an explosion was reported from an airbase in the south of the country. There have also been reports of interceptions in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. We're going to go to Laura Khan now. She is in Doha for us. So just talk us through the attacks in the Gulf region, first of all, Laura.
Well, absolutely. This war has been spilling into the Gulf region and really putting their defences to the test. Only in the past hour, we heard sirens going off on our phones. They're usually very loud. And after that, we usually wait for the familiar boom sounds in the air as many of these missiles coming over from Iran and also drones are intercepted by their own air defence systems. This time, we didn't hear any, and a few minutes later, we received a message, I'm sure much to everyone's relief, that the threat is now over. Only in the past hour as well, we did have a message from Iran's Revolutionary Guards who put out a statement essentially saying that they destroyed some important equipment in Al Udeid Air Base that's hosted by Qatar. They did say that they are aiming only at U.S. assets. Qatar has criticised this, saying absolutely not. You've been attacking civilian and energy infrastructure as well. They said that they had destroyed some. We know that this was under attack in the early hours of the morning. Again, we received these alerts on our phone, heard some booms, and apparently there was a drone attack at Al Udeid Air Base that hosts CENTCOM. This is This is the US military. Now, this has been spreading across the Gulf. We've seen a huge amount of drones being sent towards the United Arab Emirates. There was 131 yesterday. In the past couple of hours as well, there's been sirens going off in Bahrain, and there's been an attack in Kuwait. We also know that this apartment building that you mentioned that was attacked in Bahrain, the Qatari ministry put out a statement saying that some of its military personnel were there on a joint mission with Bahrain, but there have been no injuries from that attack.
OK, let's get the view from Tehran now. We're going to go to Mohamed Vall. First of all, Mohamed, just bring us up to date with the latest strikes that have been happening inside Iran.
Rob, just a few minutes ago, we saw smoke rising from at least 3 locations in western Tehran and eastern Tehran, but we have no information about the targets so far. That's the latest. That's just a few minutes ago. But throughout the day, there have been reports about strikes either in Tehran or other cities. For instance, Bandar Abbas, Kermanshah, Qum and Ilam, those are some of the places that were hit during the day. We had before that Shiraz, where 20 people were killed in a residential area and 2 medical staff were killed. We have also Mahabad in Mahabad in the northwest. On the border with Iraq. That's also one of the places that were targeted earlier this morning. And the understanding is that it is a part of a systematic campaign by Israel to weaken the presence of the Iranian government in that area, Iranian army, because that area has Kurdistan fighters in it on the other side, on the Iraqi side. And the understanding here and the reports we get from the official sources is that Israel is trying to help the Kurdistan fighters push into Iran, and that's something that is raising a lot of concern here in the country.
In the meantime, Iran's president apparently saying some countries have initiated some efforts towards mediation. What more do we know about that?
The Iranian president has tweeted about this, saying that there are countries that are trying to revive the talks and the mediation and so on, but Iran is not interested in that. Iran is focused on the fight and the resistance against the armies that are trying to invade the country and so on. And that's the same thing that the foreign minister said also yesterday in an interview with an American news outlet, when he said that Iran is not seeking mediation, it's not seeking a ceasefire even, and that it doesn't trust the United States after 2 occasions on which the United States betrayed the negotiations and began a war on Iran when negotiations were going on and when there were prospects for peace deal. So, I mean, this is basically the situation here. The leaders are not even interested in negotiations right now, and they are focusing only on the fight against US and Israel.
Well, on Truth Social, US President Donald Trump has repeated that he will not do a deal with Iran. He says there will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender. After that and the selection of our great and acceptable leaders, we and many of our wonderful and very brave allies and partners will work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction, making it economically bigger, better and stronger than ever before. Iran will have a great future. Make Iran great again. We're going to bring in our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett. Kimberly, communicating via Truth Social once again. Run us through what more that Trump has been saying.
Yeah, well, the U.S. president is essentially coalescing his message. What he's been saying is that there is a desire on the part of the U.S. military as well as the Trump administration to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities. And in the midst of that, there has been now an outright rejection of diplomacy. The goal right now for the United States, just as we heard from my colleague, it is with Iran, is to maintain military pressure in order to achieve those military objectives. Now, it is important to note that while the Trump administration, and namely Donald Trump in his Truth Social posts, tends to be a little bit more flowery in his language and sort of broader in terms of the aspirational goals, the messaging coming from the Pentagon really seems to be more focused on operational planning. And the reason for that may have a lot to do with the fact that the American public is very concerned about this war and the fact that it could end up looking a lot more like the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003 or the conflict in Afghanistan that went on for a generation. So there has been very careful selection of language, particularly coming out of the Pentagon. But the U.S. president, as you read in that Truth Social post, going so much further, really talking not only about the operation, but also about the goals and aspirations for regime change and a selection of leadership in Iran that the U.S. and its allies would be a part of.